Look at that wind, eh? Anyways, we're inside, we're warm, we're gonna start gridding. So I'm just gonna flip the camera around and then we will get right at it. But if you hear any like clanging or whatever, it's one of those things out there going clang, clang, clang. Probably won't pick up in the mic at all. I'll hear it and go, oh, what was that? But yeah, nice stormy day. Nice messy windows. So I swear, well, it'll tidying things up will be a New Year's resolution. But anyways, in the garden, well, I didn't do a fall cleanup, so I got to do a spring cleanup, and it's going to be brutal. But anyways, that's got nothing to do with what we're doing today. We are working on painting. By the way, hello, my name's Pyra Draculea. I think you know that from what's written underneath the video. All right, so we got when we last had the video, we did the underlayer color wash, whatever you want to call it. Now it's time to put the image on the canvas. So it's going to start with putting a grid on the reference image, and this is my grid reference. I also have a color reference. Now, so as to not waste tons of video time with me staring confusedly trying to do the math. Anyways, I measured with my handy dandy ruler. This is 8 inches this way, 10 inches this way. The canvas is 24 inches by 30 inches, so it works out to basically 1 inch on here is 3 inches on the canvas. I'm going to draw a 1/2 inch grid. So I'll probably won't show the whole of it. I'll show the start of the process and then I'll stop the video. So I am at first what I'm going to do on this ruler. Well, I mean, I live in Canada, so I think they assume I understand the metric system, and I do. It's a French invention. It sucks. Everybody's like, oh, the metric system is more logical than the imperial inches and feet system. I'm like, they're both completely arbitrary. Like what they figured out what is it the diameter or the circumference of the earth or whatever, they arbitrarily divided that to a certain whatever, however many kilometers, divided that by 1,000, so then we get a meter is like 39 inches and it's roughly meter. Anyways, I'm going to rant about that some other time. Point is, it's not as logical as people think it is. It's kind of, anyways. But it's annoying because the assumption seemed to be that you would put your inches on the bottom, which if you're measuring is fine, but if you want to make ticks, then it's easier to have it on the top, or that's just how my brain works. So we're going to align the bottom of the ruler with the bottom of the picture so that in theory what we're doing is all squared up. If you notice, I don't know how much that shows, but I guess I can do this. It's like a 1/16 of an inch out, but whatever. Anyways, whatever. It's a little bit out, but you know what? The actual canvas is probably like a 1/4 inch shy on either dimension anyways. So, and the edges don't really matter because the detail is all in here. So I'm going to everywhere where there is, and I do this with a red pen because it shows up a little more. So I'm just going to make some little tickies every 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to flip this around and do the other side, and then we draw lines connecting them, and then we do the same on the other. So this is not the only way to get your image on a canvas, of course. Some people swear by, some people just freehand. I mean, back in the day, I used to freehand too. Like I'd have a thumbnail. I wouldn't even have like a reference image like this. I'd have a thumbnail in my sketchbook. I'll have to make that extra long so it shows, because that is, what are they called? Fuchsias. So they have kind of long, skinny red flowers, and they look just like my tick marks. And I mean, whatever. Don't really need that one. So, but now I have to, because it's out, it's just that tiny bit shorter. Now I have to work from this side, right? Otherwise they'll be wonky. right? Because if I did it from this side, you know, the lines would actually slightly go this way. So make sure whatever side you're doing your ticks on, same when it comes to your canvas, make sure you're measuring from the same edge. Anyways, so yeah, you can freehand. Um, that is, I would say, unnecessarily hard. If you've got an image like this where you want it to be accurate um, to what you've concocted. Obviously, if you're doing like more abstracted stuff, you're probably working straight on the canvas, and that's cool. That saves you a step. It saves you actually a fair amount of time. This video will be. Oh yeah, I gotta be. I can see that, I guess. Because it's red on red. So yeah, now I've lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so now train of thought's gone. Never mind. Oh yeah, what I was gonna say is this video is gonna be a lot shorter than this process actually takes. Um, Especially when we get to the canvas. I mean, the gridding is fine. You can see I'm kind of out of. So I just line up the thing and line with the two dashes and draw a handy dandy line across. And let me pause. More squeaking. Now this is a Pilot VTech pen, so if I was doing this with a pencil or whatnot, I would get a lot more crud on the ruler. But periodically, I will wipe down the edge of the ruler. So, because otherwise, sometimes you do it, and if the ink, especially if you do this with a ballpoint pen, because that ink is a little different and it takes longer to dry. You can go and you start having like smears. I mean, that can happen even with a Pilot pen, but anyways, be aware of that. And the other thing, does it show up in the game? Okay, so what we're going to do when we get to the canvas, it is not recommended to do this with pencil. You can do it on pencil on the image, but you're also graphite smears. So even on your image, I would do this with pen or like a very fine pigment liner or something like that that's not going to smear. But when it comes to the actual canvas, I have been told now, I mean, I've been painting since I was a kid, and I'm sure in high school I did draw on the canvas with pencil. Um, I I would have to go look at my high school work if I have any of those paintings still. But I don't. But what I've been told in recent years, people said don't draw on your canvas with pencil because it can float up to the top. I think in particular if you're working with oil paintings it can do that. So you think you've covered your line drawing, and then at the end, or it's sometimes long after, or suddenly this pencil line shows up. Um, I don't know. I don't have direct experience with that, but I've been told that that happens. So um, to be safe, you can. I Some people said you can do it with a Sharpie. I'm not sure how archival that is. Maybe you don't care, but honestly, I use in my work. If you've seen the Ricky Still Life, I actually did it on top as well. I use a lot of acrylic paint pens. In fact, I have like a whole container. That's like just one corner of it. Um, so I use these thin ones. These Heroic. They're just cheap ass ones I got on Amazon years ago. Like I think I got these in 2020, maybe even 2019. But uh, the line is relatively thin. Obviously, I have bigger, fatter ones and whatnot. Like that one is, I don't know, that's still a lot thicker than what I just showed you. Um, so we will use these. They are acrylic, it says opaque ink, but it's acrylic ink, which is basically thinned down acrylic paint. So this is what we're going to use when we're gridding and drawing on the actual canvas. And I use a color that contrasts very strongly. And kind of like I don't mind my color wash showing through in between you know, blocks of color. Like if I have, you know, Ricky's shoulder here in the background here, that little gap, I don't care if the green color shows through, and I don't care if the paint pen under marking drawing shows through. But it's all acrylic, right? So it's all plastic. It all sticks together, right? So we'll get to that when we get there. But my point is, you don't do that. Some people will get like a very fine, like a liner brush and like watered down paint, and they'll draw it on the canvas with that. Um, I find that messy, and if it's thin enough that it draws like ink, then it probably runs like ink. Now I do, because I'm a cartoonist, I also have like actual acrylic inks that you would normally use with a dip pen, but you could certainly, I could use one of those and a thin liner brush, but I just find it's messy, and also that stuff, because it's thin, it stays wet longer. Now this is being done flat on a table, but you know, I'm going to smear it, have a much greater chance of smearing if I did it that way than if I use a paint marker. But if you were going to do it that way with liquid ink, and why don't I get up and show you what I'm talking about? Um, if you were going to do that, I would say the way to do it would be to start in like the top. If you're right-handed, you'd start in the top left corner and work down and to the right. And if you're left-handed, you do it the opposite way, top right corner and over. But um, this is what I'm talking about, you know. And those are, oh, now of course I've shaken it up, so you can't really tell. But I guess like you can see that's super liquid because it's a drawing ink, right? But it is an acrylic ink, so you could, when it comes to the canvas, you could draw it with that in a very thin brush. Honestly, it would probably take longer because you're going to be stopping to dip the brush all the time. And anyways, um, so like I said, the method that I found works the best is acrylic paint pens. And yeah, we will get into that in a moment. We're in like 15 minutes in real time. Anyways, I'm going to pause the video now, but I'm going to go up and draw the lines all the way. And then we'll come back and do the same thing in the other direction. So, okay. So I paused for a minute or so just to work that out. Now we are going to do the exact same thing we did before, but in the other direction. So in this case, this one, if I go, so this is really in camera. I don't know how much it shows, but we're right on the 8 and right on the 16. So we are perfect. Um, so slightly out. Actually, I mean, I could just put it on the edge, but who cares? Because the line's going to go through these marks regardless. The other method, so I mentioned that obviously I'm gridding to get this image across. I mentioned that you can freehand. The other way to do it, of course, is that you could have, if you have a projector, that would be a way to do it. And I mean, if you have like a like the kind that they use for um, business stuff, Epson, I think, is kind of the brand, the go-to brand for like putting your PowerPoint slides on the wall while all your coworkers are falling asleep. That sort of projector um, would be great. In fact, I know several people who do it that way. You do have to be cautious that things are like perfectly straight and level, because if your projector is even just like a teeny bit out on one corner, by the time you get up to um, your canvas, then the image is going to be like that, right? You're going to have a parallelogram or a trapezoid or something. So there is a lot more like fiddling with it. The other thing is then the image is being projected this way, right? So then you're going to stand there with your paint pen or your watered down ink or your watered down paint and a tiny brush, and you're going to draw on the outline, right? Well, you're blocking it. So again, you have to kind of keep, if you're right-handed, you're going to start this way and work down so that the part that's in shadow doesn't matter. Um, Honestly, I've seen this done in classes and whatnot. It still takes close to an hour to draw the image on. But you don't have to grid is the thing. You just have to then fiddle with the projector. So, you know, it's somewhat faster, but it's not guaranteed. And any method you use is probably going to have a certain amount of distortion in it. But then, I mean, cameras have distortion, right? So like there is distortion of the background scene from what it was in this image. So it is what it is. You just pick your poison and whatever works best. Like, and it depends on the scale. Like, the biggest canvases that I work with right now are like 30 inches by 40 inches, which is kind of big for me, for my body type, for the way I like to work. You know, I like to sit down when I'm painting, so I do have a stool that I can raise up and whatnot, and it's a bit of a swivel. And my easel could actually accommodate like a 7-foot canvas, but then for part of it, I'd either have to flip it upside down so the top part would be more accessible to me while sitting, or I have to stand on a step ladder or whatnot. I hate step ladders. Like, it depends, you know. If you're a big tall guy and you're not bothered by ladders, step ladders and whatnot, you probably don't mind working on bigger canvases if you have a studio. Like, there's all sorts of constraints, right? So if you're working small, gridding isn't bad. If you're doing, if you're doing this, if this portrait of Ricky was, instead of 24 inches, like 2 feet by 3 feet, if it was like 8 feet tall and 10 feet wide, then you probably do have to get a projector to get that image on, because it's going to be so frustrating to. Also, you're not going to have, like, I'm going to use a yardstick on the canvas, but obviously, well, it's a meter stick. So you can see already with these ticks, like if this was that huge and a meter stick, was only taking a third of it, then to get that, anyways, it would be frustrating. And also, hey, if you have a bad shoulder, like some of us do, then working vertically is a problem. I do work on the easel for stuff, but I also very commonly will flip the canvas around and work upside down or whatever. So I'm not having to reach up and do something with them. Anyways, point is, there's neither here nor there. So we've got a little handy dandy grid here, and I will go zoom in. So we can see, like here, where he's got, got his little claw, because he's a rat and rats have claws. So after next I have to grid onto the canvas. But then I will be doing things like I'll count over. Okay, so second square from the bottom, go over 3 squares, and we start his jacket, and it comes in just past like the halfway point, like at the 40%, and then it tapers up to meet this line. So you're basically kind of going square by square to get the outline in. This stuff's going to be very complicated and a major pain in the ass. This is the point where it takes a couple hours, right? The gridding itself isn't so bad. And that's why I'm saying, like, yeah, you'd be a little bit faster if you used a projector other than fiddling with the projector. But you're still going to be sitting there. Like, I wouldn't be drawing. It would help if I have this in. Like, I wouldn't draw this as some sort of hydrangea paniculata. I wouldn't be drawing in every single one of these little flowers, right? I would just do a squiggle, 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 line, squiggle, you know, like I'll be very loose in how I draw this in, because here I'm gonna be what quasi impressionistic, I guess. Like I'll try and make sure that these are clearly hydrangeas and that's clearly fuchsia and those are clearly hosta leaves. I'm pointing at things that aren't in. That's the fuchsia, that's the hydrangeas, that's hosta leaves, right? Like I'll make it look that detailed. These people will end up becoming rats. But I'm not going to be hyper realistic. Like the people who do hyper realistic painting, oftentimes, oh, I forget her name now. There's a lady who used to do huge, hyper realistic paintings of um, like makeup on a vanity table and stuff, right? So she would set up her reference. She would take the photo, um, and then she would project the photo onto a massive canvas. But she would, even in the painting, the projector would always be on so that she could color match it to all. Anyways, she had, I don't know if she was just obsessive or she had the patience of a saint. Anyways, a better painter than me, I'm sure. But like, I don't do that kind of detail work. So this is going to be fairly abstracted, sort of. Again, have a look at Ricky's still life. That's the kind of, you know, and like how the grapes were done and whatnot. That's the level of detail we're going to be doing. Um, Ricky himself is going to be more realistic because I'll make him like 3D and whatnot. So it kind of goes the opposite way. That's a photo that's real. That will become more stylized. This is a drawing that's very stylized. It will become more real. So, point is, now we have the grid reference, gridded. Now we got to put the grid onto the canvas, and I have to change my camera position and have it way up high so we can see what I'm doing. So we will pause the video and come back. One moment. Okay, so we got to do the same process now with this guy. And yeah, some of the canvas doesn't show and whatnot. It's a little awkward to get the camera phone, well, it's my phone, but on a camera, on a tripod, to get it angled up. But we've seen how I did it to put the lines on. The reference image is basically going to be the same. So again, I'm not going to show the whole thing. I'll show a little bit and then stop and then talk. Now for colors. Again, I don't mind, mostly this is all going to get covered up. I don't mind if some of the grid stuff does show through in some parts. But also the most important thing is visibility, right? Until I have my color blocks in a later stage of painting, so I know what's what, so I can navigate the image, I need to have the grid line be very visible. So the pink, probably going to be used over there. Green, probably down here, but also I've noticed it before. I've never had one of these actually run out of paint permanently. Like, I mean, you can see there's paint at the bottom and whatnot, but they do frequently tend to crap out after a certain number of lines, and I have to set them aside. I have to swap them out. So it's going to be a multicolored grid and underdrawing. So let's get to it. Oh yeah, so I talked about on this is 8 by 10. The canvas is 24 by 30. And so 1 inch on the reference is 3 inches here, which means what I'm going to do for the grid lines is, because it's a 1/2 inch grid here, it's going to be a 1.5 inch, which sounds huge until you realize on this scale and this level of detail, it's actually just about right. So therefore, I have kind of developed the ability to count in 1.5s because that seems to be a pretty frequent, at least mind you, I've done a couple paintings at this size. Anyways, we're going to basically do the same process as before. Now with these ones, sometimes you have to smack the bottom, smack the tips on something to get the ink to come out. So yeah, there. Anyways, so we're going to make little ticks every 1.5 inches, which is to say you could basically count by threes and go in the halves. But so 30, so we're going 28.5, We're going 27, we're going 25 and a half, we're going 24. And this one go make longer because there's a green line. It didn't really show up. 24, 22 and a half, 21, 19 and a half, 18, 16 and a half, 15. And I'm like stopping to make sure I can actually see the mark actually. Some of them I'm making a little longer, which maybe I wouldn't need to. 13 and a half, 12, 10 and a half. And these lines are a little thicker. It's not going to matter again because, you know, however detailed you make your grid, once you start painting, things are not going to be as precise. You know, his tail ending is probably going to be a little rounder or whatever, a little thinner. There's also like a gap here where this would show through because there's a gap between his tail and his cheek, and his hair hasn't started and his shoulders down here. So like for the kind of work that I do, it's a little more loosey-goosey. It depends. It would help if I put my glasses on because some of my lines are a little bit out of whack. Reality YouTube, right? Screw it up while you're explaining how to do it. So now I know the longer ones are the correct. Oh, then we got 6. We got 4.5. We got 3. And we got 1.5. There we go. So the bottom, and I know it's not super in focus. So now we're going to go and do pink on the other side. You know, I said about turning the painting around when I paint. This is exactly how I do it. You'll commonly see. I'll just make sure that my edge. If I do it like that, that's kind of. Some of it's going to show. Obviously, some of it down here and over here isn't quite. But you'll have to take my word for it. And then I kick the try the whatever. So, anyways, you've seen me do it small. I'm doing the same thing big. And now this particular canvas is pretty much dead on dimension. Some of them, like I said, are like a 1/4 inch out. So I'm not going to, what I said on the other one about make sure you measure from the same side, obviously I'd have to measure from that side this way. Well, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we should. Maybe I should do what I say and not just, you know, not make it a do as I say, not as I do. That was weird. Lights kind of dipped a little bit. I mean, I did show it's windy out there. I actually have to stand up to see. Oh, that line was way out. There we go. But yeah, if you're doing this, you want to be with your head right on top so you can make sure that you're actually measuring where the mark actually is, not where it looks like it is from over here, because it's going to be off if you do it that way. Like I think I said earlier, there's always distortion in any measure means of image transfer, right? And it would probably help if I didn't have my head over what I'm doing, because then you guys could maybe see what I'm doing. 19 and a half, 21, 22 and a half, and I'm probably already out of frame, but that's okay. Okay, so I've got all my marks. Now I got to put this across. If you're doing this with a massive canvas, I'm looking at one that's just off to your left, which is 30 inches by 40 inches. Now this is a meter, so it's essentially like 39 and a whatever, 39 and a half. So my longest measurement, it's not going to white. Well, mind you, because I go this far in, they'd probably be just one, just barely making it from either end of the yardstick. But if you're doing bigger than that, you probably also have to do one down the middle, right? Now, making sure the one down the middle is actually straight instead of something like that, I mean, that you could see is off, but when it's just a little out, the ones in the middle get hard. I guess the way you would do that is, one way you could do it is if you have something big like a giant sheet of mat board or something that's like exactly half the size, or you have a smaller canvas, like you could, if you had something like, let's pretend this is a smaller canvas. Does this even show? Yeah, it sort of does. It sort of shows what I'm talking about. But you could line a smaller canvas up with the edge of, one edge of your canvas, and then you would put your ruler, especially if, I mean, obviously this is a piece of paper. It's not going to work as well because this is flimsy, but if you had like a canvas, then you can like hold it tight to the edge, and then butt the yardstick up, and then you make marks, and then it's probably straight. I mean, obviously you'd be doing it this way, or whatever. It might be a little more, like I said, when you get to a certain size of canvas, it's easier to use a projector. Now, and this is one of the reasons why. Anyways, so now we've got our marks for the one direction. I could go and do all four edges, but then I don't know. My brain doesn't like doing that. I like doing one direction and then the other. So now we are going to flop it that way. And I will have to, because of reach, I'll have to only do a certain amount. But like I said, I'm probably not going to show the entirety. I'm just going to show how I do it roughly. Oh, interesting. This is wobbly. Huh. Interesting. Is there crap underneath here? I'm just suddenly realizing this canvas is wobbly. But it didn't seem wobbly the other direction. Oh, it is. Well, that's good to know. Montmartre. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm just looking. This is, you see that? Montmartre. This is one that I got at Home Goods. Well, Home Sense here in Canada and the United States is called Home Goods. So it is kind of off-brand. I have other Montmartre canvas. Oh shit, that is bad. Okay, well, this is good to know. This canvas, I mean, this is a painting that I may not be selling. I'm going to be exhibiting it at the Cowichan exhibition. The reference image is taken at the Cowichan exhibition. I am putting it in the Cowichan exhibition, and then I'll probably, it's something I was debating selling, but for my bigger canvases, I actually get them from Michael's, and I get the gallery wrapped ones. They are a lot more expensive, and I haven't noticed any of them warp. But this is actually the second, now that I'm on this, I'm going to start ranting about it. This is actually the second time I've noticed a Montmartre canvas that had that kind of an issue. I'm going to bring in another one. This is my guy, Noah Thorson. If I zoom out, Noah wobbles too. But this is a painting I'm not going to sell because I realize this. Plus, these hot pink, this is some fluorescent paint that I used. This originally was a background wall for my brief little YouTube show, The Nick White Show. So at that point, I didn't care about color permanence. I think I talked about this on, did I talk about it on Scuttlebutt? It might have been on one of the versions where I had technical issues and it didn't end up in the final. Anyways, so I started on this painting in August, but what I didn't realize in this case, you have this kind of a cross bracing. The other one doesn't. The other one just has a single one, right? And it may be that it's this that's warped, I don't know. But the bigger ones, you need some level of cross bracing. But this I noticed, and to get it to show in the camera, I don't know if I can, but this is bowed outwards. Because I noticed, yeah. So I don't know if the outside frame is also out of whack or whatnot. But when I noticed that, and the other thing is, usually you want to have a wire that'll go across this way. But because this bows out, it's never going to lie flat on a wall. So my thing is, and it's a cheap canvas, you know, sometimes it's tempting to get cheap ones. And if they're small enough, it doesn't really matter. But on the big ones, it really matters. So anyways, when I realized this, I only realized it a couple weeks ago. I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to keep this one. He's going to hang in my house. And on some surfaces, it's not as bad, right? In some directions, but he does wobble in certain directions. It wobbles quite bad in this, right? So anyways, you get what you pay for. And I've had this canvas, and I have a few others similar that I've had in my stash for a few years, because I had some big project I was going to do in 2020, and then it never happened. So, but yeah, holy crap. This bottom corner, and I know I'm zoomed in, so, but the bottom right corner as we go is like, it's like a centimeter. It's almost a half an inch. Like, this is on the table. This bottom pink corner is like half an inch off the table. So it's quite a severe warp, which is probably also why they ended up, because Montmartre, I think, does sell their stuff in actual like art supply stores and whatnot. But it may be it's like, oh, these ones are too warped, we won't sell them. Well, we'll dump them off on HomeSense, and you know, someone who, like Pyra, who doesn't pay attention and is just like, oh, cheap canvas, will buy it and take it home and start working on it before realizing how badly warped it is. Anyways, that's fine. We know you learn by these mistakes, right? So I'm going to use a yellowish pen because it'll not show up at all. Sometimes with these, you have to like smack the bottoms or smack the tips on something until they start actually expelling ink. And sometimes what comes out initially is kind of more liquid. So now we're getting this. The one thing I noticed with these is they do tend to have a little bit of splatter coming off, which is fine again in background. I did use one of these on the Ricky Still Life to draw in the Rat Daniels, the labeling on the whiskey bottle. And it did this on it. Now, at that point, I was pretty much done the painting. I was just like, we're just going to call that character and not worry about it too much. But my other paint markers don't have that kind of splatter. But they have fatter lines, and we want it sort of thin. So anyways, we are going to, you've seen me do a couple lines. I'm going to go all the way up the canvas. I'll actually probably flip it around halfway and meet in the middle. And then we will come back and do the cross grid and go from there. All right, so we got our lines across, and I think they show up in camera. Now we're going to do the opposite direction. And I ended up using a yellow for the whole thing. I tried to use a blue, but then some of them will kind of, what they first put out is kind of like a clear liquid, and the actual like opaque pigment is buried deeper in the marker. So you have to like smack it out and whatnot. But anyways, we'll try this blue for now. Checking where it is. So, oh, we'll see part of this side. And now we join the two. I may not show because of the camera angle, but basically I'm lining up this bottom corner with the two tabs. So I realize on the camera it probably overshadows that, but yeah. And I am wiping off the edge every few lines. This because you're coming out with like a liquid acrylic ink, you do get more of it goobered onto the ruler versus the pilot pen with the smaller ruler. But I'll do one more and then I will just go finish it off camera. Some of these are a little more subtle. When you look closely, you can see them. They actually probably show up a lot better in the camera than in person, but once you start the lines, you'll be able to figure it out when the drawing happens. So we'll be back. We have the grid done. Woohoo! It's 11:25 by my watch. I started at about 10:30 on this, albeit started 10:30 on this, not, so it's been an hour just to do the grid lines. Anyways, with the projector, it would seem that you can skip right to this step, except you can't because of what I said about like making sure it's like not gonna warp, that it's totally level, that anyways. Now you get into the nitpicky, nit-gritty part. We got to draw Ricky on. So I am sitting at the bottom right corner. We are going to work this way. And we'll just move the damn canvas, flip it around, etc. I was thinking as I did the last lines, like up here, we may have a little bit of, where the windows are. It might be kind of fun because that's window 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 windows on the top. And you can sort of see the outside, but it's indistinct. I'm thinking, in the Noah thing I just showed you when I was talking about the warped frames, there are some spots where what I did was then if a particular intersection was going to show through, where I then added more lines and did like patterns. I do want to do some of that here. I think I may do it through the windows where you see this. Because then the grid lines would be there, but you're going to get that decoration, and it's kind of trippy. Like the outside world is all weird and whatnot. But I could also see maybe doing little snippets of it here, right? Because again, like in Noah, there's parts of the water of the pool that you have that pink showing through, and like the background on Noah is done. Like I got to work on him. I got to work a little bit on the sidewalk and on his cell phone and his costume and whatnot. But like the trees, the lawn, the pool, that's all done. So where it shows through, it's going to show through. So some of this stuff, it may show a little bit through here, but I think definitely on the windows, it's 100% not going to be covered, and we'll bring out the gridish sort of part. Because we want it to be a little bit trippy. Ricky's probably eaten a fistful of mushrooms before going to the fair, anyways, and he's looking for cheese and weed to continue his high. Disavow, by the way, I don't do those things. That was never my thing. My brain is weird enough without taking chemicals to make it weirder. So we are going to start. What I said before, I think I positioned this so, well, I can always just shove it this way, and then I know it's pretty much in the frame. I can't see my phone from where I'm sitting. But we'll count over, and we will start drawing the outline. And I'll show a fair chunk of it and kind of try and talk as I go. Um, but there's going to be some stuff where I might just kind of like, there'll be a sudden jump cut and then it's like, and we're done. But let's go. So we're all going 1, 2, 3, and this, like I said, I'll probably change as we go. See, I can't count. I am bad at math. That was only 2. 1, 2, 3, and then the fourth one. So we're gonna put a little mark there. His jacket's going like that. It's coming up to this line, and then it's joining, roughly joining the vertical line at that point. So he's got that kind of a curve. It's funny, this is the same pen, but sometimes it comes out like clearer and darker, and sometimes it's more opaque and light. I expect to change pens like 3 or 4 times in this process. So, and then this jacket comes across there, comes a little bit into here and starts going up, but it doesn't until really the fourth one is kind of where it comes there. So his jacket's going to go like that. His official judge badge comes from like about yay over to 2 squares to about there. And it's like one full one and then a half. So judge badge comes up there. Doesn't have his little, the actual lanyard doesn't start until there. We're going to do a little like that. Then his necklace kind of sleeve. So this is the point where it gets hard for me to talk and draw at the same time. So I'll probably just patch in some classical music or something. And then when I'm editing, I'll make a note of how long so that I know. And then the U in judge is there. And a U in judge is there. Do I want to? Yeah, I kind of like the crossbar J's. There. And then the S kind of is right on that line. And that. I may have to fudge versus what's in the drawing to fit it in. Yeah, it kind of works. It does say official judge. Ricky, it's an ongoing joke that Ricky can't spell, which is why it's spelled this way. But he wants us to know he is the official judge, but you know, he would need like a judge's clerk to take notes and maybe we got to do a little bit like that. Some of these details we will figure out later. And then, so his necklace, like his lanyard comes around like that. That's his neck right there. There we go. And the lapels of his little jacket come almost out, and then that, and it goes down like that. Which means that then his arm starts right there. So judge's claw is pointing at, actually, since you have this, you can just wipe it off. You're going to paint over anyways, so his finger is going like that. Knuckle 1, knuckle 2, knuckle 3. Now I started with a little video of outside. It was sunny and the wind stopped, and now it's clouding over and the wind's picking up again. I can hear some stuff going tinkle tinkle and all that sort of stuff now. I didn't draw Ricky's belly in. It's gonna go about like that, which means his belly button actually can be a little lower like that. And he does have a little belt buckle. So under the judge, belly button right about here. And belt buckle's about like that. Actually, I don't know which. I'd have to think about which way, because which way the belt end goes. Because men and women often it goes in the opposite direction. Like you can tell the difference in like a man's button-down shirt and a woman's button-down shirt. The buttons are on the opposite sides. So like my buttons are on the left side, and this was bought in the women's section at Walmart, so I assume that it's done correctly. So, and every so often, if you want to double check your proportions, you can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Belt buckle is in 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Belt buckles in 6. Although I have drawn it slightly off from what's in there. 7, 8. His arm's coming down to 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. And his arm's going to come down like that. And then off of official judge. So, and we gotta go right because that's his armpit. Now his actual arm is going to come up around and into the second. Yeah, his shoulder is going to be like that. Now some of this, because I'm not working from a reference photo, well, I am for the background, but for Ricky, it's just a cartoon. And this was a very quick doodle. Like that, the actual cartoon was like that size. So like some of the niceties of like how his sleeve works and whatnot, they're not actually in that. I feel like he should have like a little zipper. Except if he did that, then his zipper would be back here. Anyways, we can fix that later. A little zipper would be back there if this is open. You just make it worse. Anyways, again, this is getting painted over, right? So we have official judge. And if we can see Ricky's belly button, then he has not actually worn a shirt to the fair, which Mama Rat is not going to be happy about. She's going to be yelling at him that he was being indecent. But, you know, it's Mama Rat's fault. She didn't raise him right. If she raised him right, he would have been wearing a suit and tie. I have actually done drawings of Ricky wearing t-shirts, but usually it'll be something like obscure punk t-shirts. Like I have a cartoon, and hey Pyra, when you're editing, go find it and insert it. But where Ricky and Baby's insisting Ricky takes her to the ballet and has to be all fancy, I guess, is the background. And then we see where she's yelling at him, you can't wear that to, or he's saying, why do you mean I can't wear my don't fuck with the Wong shirt to the ballet? And she's like, it's not fancy enough, Ricky. He's like, but baby, this cost me $500 on eBay. And you would be lucky to even find a don't fuck with the Wong's shirt on eBay. And you probably would pay about $500 in the current year for it. Don't fuck with the Wongs, by the way, if you're not familiar. If you've ever heard of a punk band, legendary Canadian punk band, SNFU, their singer was Try Pig. This is one of Try's other projects. Probably his little hand's going to be here. And I know because, anyways, also wow. Hi, power outage. Okay, it flashed on again. Is it going to come back on? Cue the Jeopardy theme. Well, it's windy enough that we may be completely out of power, in which case, fun. Anyways, This is the problem with living somewhere windy, and it's storm season, whatever. But thanks for watching so far. By the way, I think I forgot. I'm just kind of stalling because sometimes my power comes back on like really suddenly. But why don't I take this off of the tripod? I'll show you guys what's going on outside. And oh, now it's gonna pause. But like the dead fronds on that palm tree were like going quite severely over. Now it just looks like a gentle breeze, but it was like this little that thingy, little mirror thing was going like 45-degree angle a minute ago. But anyways, we may have a tree down. That happens here regularly. My yard is so messy. But anyways, it's been windy all day, but clearly we're having issues right now. So for now, I'm going to pause the video and hopefully, well, the power will come on eventually, but sometimes it comes on in like 10 minutes and sometimes it comes on in like 4 hours, depending how many trees are down and, you know, crew response, all that sort of stuff. So we will pause this for now. I was in the middle of telling you something about Ricky, which now, oh, I was talking. There's the power. Is it going to stay on again? My printer's going to make some noises. Okay, well, let's see here. What I was talking about, I think, was, oh yeah, don't fuck with the wongs. So we might be able to get away with just continuing on. There we go. So SNFU, kind of a legendary punk band. Oh, and the other thing I was saying was I wrap the paint around, so therefore his hand would come there, because otherwise it would start getting really weird if that was all sleeve, like for the next inch and a half. So we're gonna have the little sliver of his hand, so that then I can draw his little hand in down here and just kind of like half-ass it. So that was what I was blathering about Ricky and his "don't fuck with the Wong" shirt. And it's just kind of, I've made it in the podcast, it's kind of a bit of a running joke, that, you know, his girlfriend Baby does not approve of this shirt. And Ricky doesn't understand it because it's like the coolest thing he has. Now we gotta. So anyways, as I'm doing this, when I'm doing his face, I will try and zoom in on it. We'll really zoom in on it. Are we going to stay? Are we going to be a good tripod and stay in place so the people can see Ricky's face being drawn? You can see some of it. I'll move this down, right? So we've got his little chin. And basically I'm looking on the grid reference. So that line crosses not quite half, like about a third. So that would help if I had that. The line of his cheek there goes like a third over. So here it's like a third over. And anyways, so what we're kind of trying to connect the dots. I may actually have to turn this around so I can reach it better. But, and hopefully the power stays on. So anyways, there is a grid line here, but it's a little bit iffy. And I don't know how much, like this blue it's kind of a turquoisey teal. In some spots, like this is all the same pen. I'm probably pointing at things that we're not zoomed in on. But in some spots, it's clearer and dark. Almost looks black. In other spots, it's this opaque. But where it's kind of the opaque and it's lighter, it almost kind of like buzzes because of the contrast with the pink. And it won't be as noticeable up here in the green, but that's kind of going to be his hairline. So we won't be as concerned. So let me just get the outline of the little dude's face. Here, his whiskers, we'll draw the whiskers on at the very end, and the hair. So his nose, his mouth then is about halfway in here, It curves up to here. So you can see where I'm saying about distortion. Like this is not as exact. If you got, I mean, in high school and junior high, we used to do things where our teacher, our art teacher had a projector in, like there was a storage room between two classrooms. And it was dark in there. So if you wanted to do like a big drawing of your favorite band, like you would cut a piece of paper off of the paper roll and you would tape it up on the wall, and then he would help you get the the image on the projector. Now that wasn't the kind where it wasn't like a plug into a computer kind. It was one where you put the piece of paper flat and then it would like, it had like a lens or something that took it up and it would flip it. It would actually be upside down on the wall, unless you, well, I mean, you could do this and then it would be right side up on the wall, right? But I have thought a couple times about getting that kind of projector. Sometimes those ones are cheaper. And the other thing I have heard, and I have not tried this, so I cannot attest to it, but I have heard it, people say that it works great, is, you know, the clear transparencies, like overhead projector that your teachers used to use for notes and stuff. You can get transparency sheets for that, like printable transparency sheets. They're harder to come by nowadays than they used to be, but you can get them on Amazon. It's like 100 sheets for like $30 or something like that. So reasonable, you know, it'll be like 30 cents a sheet. But you could then print an image like this. And if you had one of those overhead projectors, you would put it on the glass and it would show it through and bounce it out. Now the bulb replacement bulbs for those overhead projectors can be like $300 or $400. But the projectors themselves, oftentimes, if you know, if people want to get rid of them for free, so, you know, like you could get one that still sort of works, and, you know, and either when it stops working, you can either pay the few $100s to get a new projector bulb, or you can, you know, recycle the projector at that point and get another one off of Craigslist. I'm just saying there's options, right? Now Ricky's eyes, reality, I haven't drawn it totally properly in the cartoon, because he's drawn a little bit more cartoon style versus realistic, but we do need to make him, we don't need to, but we're going to make him look realistic. So the other so he will eventually have, you know, white eyes and, you know, a little like that. I'm not going to worry about it right now. He does have somewhat of a widow's peak in his hair, not much, you know, just a little bit. So like that much of a widow's peak. And then his hairline, we're going to kind of come and scribble it. Because what we will do when we paint is, and I've learned this, like I'll block in the hair color, right? But I won't come super close here. And then when I block in his skin color, I'm going to go way out to like here with his forehead color. And then the hair comes in, and it, with thinner brush strokes and more jagged, it looks like it's actual hair growing out of his head instead of like a Barbie doll hairdo. So, okay, and then his hair is kind of spiky there. I am going to draw on his whiskers here, but the whiskers are going to vanish when we start painting, and then they get drawn on at the last minute. And he looks really weird to my eyes without his whiskers, but I just have to suffer through that for the painting, because otherwise you try and paint around the whiskers in the background, in the foreground, and it just doesn't work. So, and always, Ricky has 3 whiskers. Come on, more paint, more paint, more paint. You gotta smack these, and you gotta yell at your markers. And it works. 3 whiskers on his cheeks. The reality is rats have lots of whiskers. That's kind of how they sense the world, but yeah. And now I'm going to shift this sideways, so because I'm having a hard time reaching. So we're going to do it this way, and I'm going to make sure that that's actually still, no. There he is. There's his face. Because now we got to draw his ears. So I got to reach up over there, and it's getting a little far. So where his hair starts is right there. It's basically almost 1 3/4. So he's kind of like that for his hair. And the other thing I gotta, because I've done, this will be the third painting I've done of Ricky. I did an oil one, and I did Ricky Still Life. So what I've learned is, again, when I'm blocking, I gotta kind of, the hair goes on top. So I think what I'm gonna do is put a dotted line in how far I want his skin color to extend. And then I block in his hair after. But the same thing applies to his ears. So his actual ear would be, his skull would go up to about like that, right? And then his ear comes out from there. So, and we are going to right now count down 1, 2, 3. Right. So we've got, I didn't finish the drawing there. Well, we have 3 squares that clear the top of his ear. So his ear obviously is sort of buried by his hair. So the ear, we got 3 over and 4 up. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is where his ear kind of, really that far out, yeah. And I was sloppy in the drawing of his ear, but also it looks weird from this angle. The other thing is I tend to have the ears flatten around towards the camera. Obviously, as he turns his head, the reality is one of his ears would turn more oval. But we kind of have that effect going here, but it makes my brain hurt even though I know it's actually the real way that his actual ears would be. So we got that, and then the other ear, well, his head's kind of cocked a little bit, right? So his other ear is going to be 4 over, and let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then his ear starts in 4 over. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. His ear is here. It's kind of, this one's coming down more, right? Yeah. And he does have stud earring there. We kind of have to. The other thing is, some of his hair, I always have to be careful when I'm drawing him because I want to always draw the hair there. And I forget that actually he has hair coming out from behind his ears too. Like it's not just the front. But anyways, and then he has hair going in between his ears, right? And he's a cartoon character, so we don't have to worry as much about anatomical accuracy. But yeah. But it is the one ear does go a lot higher than the other, but that's fine because he's got his head tilted or whatever. So Ricky is drawn. Let me zoom out. And this one, it does show a lot more close up. So now we need to start drawing the background. Oh yeah, we need his tail. How can I forget his tail? Oh my god. So, well, his tail is going to extend. I'm pointing at things that aren't in the camera. His tail is like going 2.5 squares over from the midpoint of his ear. So 1, 2, and somewhere in there. And it ends up, and I'm kind of freehanding this because this is not really well defined in the uh, putting the kind of worm segmentation lines. I think when I've seen pictures of actual rat tails, what that actually is they have little bits of hair, really short hairs that go in rows. So that's what kind of gives the line effect. Um, but it's still kind of sparse because their tails are kind of hair. Well, they have hair on them, but they're kind of like um, human anatomy. Some parts don't have as much hair as others, and some it's like very fine. Palms of your hands don't have hair. Back of your hand, back of your fingers might. Anyways, so there we have Ricky. And now I'm going to do kind of the similar with the background, but I'm going to actually pause the video portion because then I can just do it faster just without talking, and then you don't have to watch me do it. It's going to be the same thing as what I did for Ricky, except, a little bit more nitpicky. So, anyways, hang tight. I think I got it roughed in. I didn't do super, super detailed. But once again, here's the reference, the grid reference. And then, whoops, sorry, banged the thing. Now I am going to take the camera of my phone off of the tripod and hold it up a little tighter so to get some details, because some stuff it's hard to see unless you're right against it. Um, the next stage will be to um, to block in some rough areas of color. But as I do this, so there's banners hanging down. Got like one with crayon, one with honeycomb, some baking stuff. The grid shows through. I did use a ruler to do some of these like geometrical type of stuff. Now with the lattice, um, I'm probably going to paint it white, but have something referencing and then let the grid show through or something. I don't know. We've got some honking big hydrangeas in here. They're very roughly done because I'll be looking at the reference photos as I go. And like ribbons hanging off of the thing. All these vases, people in the background that have been ratified. And there was one other. Oh no, it was like that guy. So, and whenever I took this photo, it was probably, first thing in the morning when there weren't that many people there. Because there are times where it's like shoulder to shoulder. And that would have been a nightmare to paint. But I would have been minding my own booth at the time because I think I've said before about my involvement with the Couch and Exhibition. So we got Official Judge and him pointing at his thing. I will have it showing ribbons. Now, it may not be obvious for something like this. I could probably get it close enough to put in. That was a red one, so second place, and that was a blue for first, and then just have the color in the background. But the idea is to kind of show the fair's already open, but he's being a bit of a weasel. He wants to sample the cheese and the weed. So anyways, that is that. And by the way, I just realized I didn't say anything at the beginning, but I am filming this ahead of time. It's currently December 15th, but I have the guessing video for this canvas is going out in 2 days. And then I have with the color background, that's going out on Christmas Eve, the 24th. So this is going out on New Year's Eve, the 31st, the week after. So Happy New Year, everybody. Let's hope for lots of painting in 2026. I know I'm going to be trying to do lots of painting in 2026. And yeah. Hope you've had a great Christmas. And like I said, Happy New Year. and we will be carrying on with this whole painting as we go. The other ones I referenced, like I said, I'm going to be painting, but on my Saturday scuttlebutt, I'll show like still progress images of what it looks like each week on whatever I worked on that week. But for the Paint With Me series, we're just going forward. We're going to work on one painting, everything I do on it, other than it, like in this process. Obviously, I turn the camera off a bit, but we'll have like the 1 hour long painting videos uh, each week, just showing whatever I'm going. And when this painting's done, then we'll start a new one. Although that will also only be worked on camera. The only thing is, I think for the future ones, I won't do like a gridding video or a gessoing video. Probably for the next Paint with Pyra painting, when we get to it in however many weeks, I will just start with a canvas that I've already gessoed. The first episode will be show you the color, show you the reference images, and show you the process of putting the color underlay. And then the next one, magically, the grid will be on there and we'll just get to painting. But I did think it was kind of useful to show at least once what the process is. And then for future paintings, I could just link to this video and say, if you want to see how I grid, this is approximately how I do it. And obviously I didn't show most of gridding the background, but it's the exact same as what I showed with Ricky, where I had the thing and I'm like counting squares. Okay, this banner is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it begins in the 8th square. It goes down however. So like it's the same as when I was drawing Ricky, just repeated ad nauseum. So hope you've enjoyed this episode and catch you next time when, well, it depends. I may, because I've got other ones I need to grid and start working on. I may set this one aside until the week after Christmas. Well, I guess either way, probably when I next see you, the video will be posted in 2026. It may have been filmed before 2026, but we'll sort that out when we get there. And anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, oh, you know the drill. And we'll catch you next time. Bye for now. Bye, Ricky. Bye, you guys.